we go. All right. So I'll just start over again there. So I just wanted to welcome everyone and thank everyone for all of the posts and homework that you did yesterday. It was absolutely amazing, everything that you did. There's so much going on in the Facebook group, and thanking everyone for sharing all of their stories. As I was saying, I have replied to a handful of them, and I have read many, many more of them as well. There's a lot of great information there. There's a lot of stuff that I think people have realized and already know that they're doing wrong. And maybe, it's just looking for the right way to implement those things. Now, as I was saying, I know we've got hundreds of new people today. So for people who don't know me, I just wanted to introduce myself again. I'm Dr. Rob Vanbergen. I'm a doctor of natural medicine, a doctor of humanitarian services, and I hold a PhD in natural medicine as well. I'm one of the founders of Pain Free for Life, and I will be your host for the 5-day Jumpstart and the bonus days. So welcome to everyone that's new, and welcome back to the attendees from yesterday. Now, I also know that there's a bit of confusion over everything going on, especially for people new today and for people that are new to Facebook. So I just wanted to take a moment to show you how to find the guides section on Facebook so that you can make the most of this event. So I'm just going to share my screen here. This will show you how to get your workbook, how to connect with your concierge, etc. So just give me 1 second here. All right, hopefully you can all see my Facebook page here. So this is the Facebook group, the Pain Free for Life Jumpstart. So most of you will get a similar looking layout to this, and you'll be able to see here, you've got your discussion section right here underneath all the pictures of people underneath the Pain Free for Life Jumpstart group, discussion, and then you have guides. Now, if you click the guides button here, it's actually going to open up to some resources where you can check out getting started videos, guides on how to find the sessions, the replays, how to connect with your concierge, etc., and then guides for homework for each. That's very strange. I got muted. Top of the Facebook group there. All you need to do is hit the guides button, and you'll be able to actually access those guides. So it's pretty simple, and you can see all of that stuff there. That's something you should definitely check out in the Facebook group. Okay, so on with our morning announcements. So to everyone that is new or came on late yesterday, please feel free to introduce yourself. I'd love to meet you all. So when you're doing that, please use the #live or #replay kind of link there. Just type that in before you post, because that'll show us whether we're watching this live or whether you're watching a replay. Please note as well that my team has muted the Zoom meeting so that there are no interruptions, so that we can get a clean recording so that everyone can hear. So I will not be able to hear you, though I can still see many of your faces kind of parked at the top there. So nice to see you here. I see familiar faces from yesterday. So because we want to make sure you don't miss a thing, we are kind of sending a lot of things your way. So please pardon us for our over communication. We just really want to make sure you don't miss out. You signed up for this for a reason, and there's so much going on. So we will be sending out daily reminder emails and texts, and an end of the day wrap up email as well. So we really aren't trying to spam you or anything of the sort. We just want to make sure everyone has the resources and access that you need. So a special shout out again to our team member, Leo, who's working really hard. You may have seen him in the Facebook group there, just to make sure everyone gets what they need. So Leo is our workshop concierge. So his job is to personally reach out to each of you, make sure you've got everything going that you need, help you out in the Facebook group, as well as in direct messages and on Facebook and text. So if possible, it is really important that you make sure you connect with Leo to get in on the text loop with them. This is going to get you access to special bonuses and private events. These really are not available except by text. So if you haven't had contact with your concierge yet, drop #NeedAConcierge in the Facebook group or in the Zoom chat, or you can email support@painfreeforlife.com to make sure you get in touch with Leo via text. And I'm going to share his number in a second as well. So 3 important pieces of information. Replays are going out each day. So if you are watching this replay live, don't worry, they will be going out each day and they're available until March 1st. So you'll be able to watch each replay. So second, make sure you get your workbook printed out if you like to have it in paper form like I do. Then you can fill things in and you're able to use all of that information that we've got in here. It's all in there, including a schedule of everything that's going on. If not, you can also fill this out digitally as well. So the next thing, if you would rather be on Zoom for watching it, you can go to pffljumpstartzoom.com. This will take you to the Zoom directly each day. Lastly, text Leo. If you want to text him to connect with him, his number is 415-688-2045. Don't hesitate to connect with him. If you have any questions, he is here for you. Again, 415-688-2045. And for the full event experience, I do encourage people to get into the Facebook group. If you go to pffljumpstartreplays.com, you can join the group through there. Even if you don't normally use Facebook, you can create an account and you can get in there just for the event. The big benefit to the Facebook group is that we're using it kind of like a forum, a discussion forum. So I'm able to interact on homework. I get to see your homework answers and questions. I get to answer what it may be that I can answer and offer you support. And seeing more event info as well. There's a lot more event info in there because Zoom is not really set up to share it in the same way. So make sure you answer the questions when you request access to join the group. If not, my team will be or has been following up with you. So lastly, another thing we noticed is that Leo has been trying to message people back, but many of you have not accepted his friend request, which means it won't let him message you. So check your Facebook friends request to see if Leo, pain-free, has requested to be your friend. It's just his way of being able to actually directly message with you and get you the things you need. Nearly at the end of the morning announcements, guys, there were a lot of requests for something to share with people so that they could actually see what this event was about beyond just inviting them in. So we do have in the guides section on Facebook, we've created a graphic and a friend invitation. You can copy that and you can send it on to your friends. It will show them how to get in. If you invite people directly to the group, they won't have the information they need to be able to actually join. So if you want them to join, you need to send them the link to actually register for the event so that then they can get into the group. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, everyone. So let's dive in, shall we? Okay, day 2 of our event, identifying the root source of your pain and the aggravators. So welcome everyone once more to Jumpstart Day 2. I can see a lot more people have joined since we began. So just another quick welcome from me. Yesterday, we talked about the failings of the conventional medical system. And I asked you to think about what has worked and what hasn't worked for you. So for those of you who shared in the group, thank you so much. I was able to review a bunch of them, as I said. I was able to comment on them personally. There's already some amazing insights in there, and everyone is actually quite aware of what's going on with their health. It shows that level of awareness, knowing what does and doesn't work, what has and hasn't worked. And as I said, it's super, super important to be able to identify that if we're looking to resolve things like this. To everyone who has been told that you need to take drugs, have surgery, or you have zero chance to get better, and I saw a lot of people's posts, a lot of people's homework mentioning that sort of stuff, the same stuff we talked about yesterday. I want to ask you to challenge that, because from what I have seen, from what my parents, my family has seen doing this for all the years we have been, you can absolutely resolve your problem without drugs, without surgery, and there is always something that you can do. Now, we started laying the groundwork yesterday to actually resolve chronic pain. We had to dive into that history and look at what is and isn't working. But today we're going to answer the big question. What is at the root of your pain or of your disease, and what is aggravating it? This information is critical to understanding how to reverse the problem. So all of this is part of a process. So keep going, look in your workbook for your questions, and we'll be able to work through this together. So the big question of why am I not healing is something that I hear all the time, though not necessarily directly. It's more implied when people talk to me on the phone. I want people to think about it, and I've posed this question to some of our veteran members before, but if our body is designed to heal itself, why isn't it healing? So we are not built to fall apart, right? It's just not fundamentally what happens. Our entire lives, when we get hurt, we heal. However, if we're not healing, that means something has to be wrong. Something is standing in the way of us actually recovering. And that's what we're going to explore today. So let's talk inflammation. Now, before I get into that, I do know many of you have probably heard of inflammation before. Many of you have probably heard me talk about inflammation before. Inflammation is a natural part of the healing process during the acute stages. So acute inflammation being something that happens after you get hurt or in an initial onset of a condition. And although it's an uncomfortable experience, it does actually serve an important purpose. But when inflammation turns chronic, that's when we need to start to worry. Doctors will define that at least 3 months of pain must pass before you can be considered in chronic pain. Perhaps again, as we mentioned yesterday, you need to be referred to a specialist first as well. And I don't believe that is true. When properly supported, the body should be done with that inflammatory response within 2 to 3 weeks maximum. Now, the general inflammatory process, as that little image will show you on the screen, would be something harmful entering the body. Now, this can be like a sliver of wood that gets stuck in and creates inflammation. This could be a virus. It could be anything. It could even be your own immune system in the case of autoimmune diseases. But it's something that's considered harmful within the body, and so your body attacks it. It creates inflammation. It creates pain, heat, swelling, redness, and it does all of this as part of that inflammatory response to heal. Now, when the natural inflammatory response occurs for an acute injury or a condition, it may not feel good. We all know how much it sucks when we get hurt, but it does serve a purpose. So inflammation plays this kind of crucial role. And I want people to think of inflammation as kind of a scorched earth approach, if you know what that means. The idea of burning things down so that you don't have to deal with it anymore. Your body is burning the area in an attempt to protect you and summon your immune system to attack any invading pathogens. So symptoms of inflammation, rubor, tumor, calor, dolor, and functio laesa, are Latin versions of redness, swelling, heat, pain, and loss of function. So they have Latin names because they're that well known. They've existed for that long. So redness is a visual alert to you that something is wrong. If you look at your arm and it's really bright red, you think to yourself, oh, what's going on here? Swelling, a cushioning to protect the area from further damage. Heat, a fire to burn the problem, and pain, a signal for you to take it easy. We need to rest so that we're able to heal. And then loss of function, this kind of comes along later on once inflammation turns closer to chronic. This is a way of your body saying, do not use this part of your body because it is not good for you right now. All of these signs, again, these have been known since even before the ancient Greeks coined the terms and named it inflammation. So this is something that's been around for a very, very long time. But somewhere along the line, we stopped caring about it. So chronic pain is born out of a strange and misunderstood process in which your body stops this natural healing process from ending. It's like you hurt yourself and your body is like, we've got to stop you using that wrist because you hurt it, it needs time to heal. And then for whatever reason, it forgot to stop the inflammation. Now, sometimes I think it comes down to pain medications. So we turn the warning signals off as we mask the pain, and the brain thinks it's already shut down that inflammatory response. But really, the inflammatory program continues to run in the background because the chemical signal that turned that inflammation down was not from the brain. So inflammation continues, pain kind of flares up, swelling gets worse, loss of function starts to set in. And in cases of autoimmune disease, the body then sees this inflammation as a threat, and it sends your immune system to an area with nothing to attack but yourself. And this is where you get conditions where people have like a thyroid issue, right? Hashimoto's, an autoimmune thyroid disease, where the inflammation of the thyroid attracts the immune system to attack and destroy it. Multiple sclerosis, it will work on attacking and destroying the myelin sheath around the nerves. It's something that your body is saying, there's got to be something wrong here because it's inflamed. And so it goes for it. Now, over 80% of all chronic disease, illness, and pain is the result of inflammation. And that is recorded, proven information announced by all sorts of health authorities over the world. To me, I think it's probably more likely 100%. But the above, again, these are the official statistics. So that means that out of the 1.5 billion people around the world suffering from chronic pain, at least 1.2 billion of them are suffering still from that inflammatory response. That is the reason that they are struggling with this pain. Now, again, inflammation is a natural part of the healing process during the acute stages. But when we look to inflammation as a body-wrecking event, something that sticks around, blocks electrical communication, and causes us pain and discomfort, then we start to see the answer to the question. We now know why we are not healing. Now, there's a connection between pain and inflammation that I've just made, that the ancient Greeks have made, that everyone for millennia have made, that is being denied in a lot of places. You can't really have pain from inflammation unless the area is so, without inflammation, unless the area is so ravaged by that inflammatory response that the pain you now experience is degenerative nerve pain without a sign of inflammation at all. So the fire, the scorched earth process is completed, the tissue is as damaged as it can be, and the fire burns out. And then there's a sign of degenerative pain. But with our tools that we have at our disposal, we've been able to look at people, look at everyone, measure for that degeneration, measure for that inflammation. And I tell you, it is so rare to see degenerative pain. It's something that I'm very surprised if I see at all. Mild degeneration, sure, that's a sign of inflammation as well. But to the point where lack of function is so impaired that it's not inflammatory, it's extremely rare. And still, to this day, certain governing bodies, and I'll just go ahead and name them, like the FDA, see a difference between pain and inflammation, as if you can have one without the other. So when you have something that can erase pain and stop it coming back, functionally what you've done is actually eliminate inflammation in its entirety. But what you're allowed to say is that you can manage pain. Any mention of inflammation online right now, I could get in trouble for that because apparently there's no connection between the two. Again, of course, despite millennia of evidence to the contrary. Bureaucratic crap, that's what I call that. So why aren't we healing? So inflammation, bottom line, we're getting to that point. It is impossible to regenerate in the presence of inflammation. Inflammation holds us in that space of protection while the body gets ready to heal, but it doesn't allow us to heal until the inflammation is turned down. We don't know that the inflammation is there when we cover it up, right? We covered this yesterday. And so we forget about it. We trick our body into forgetting about it. And all the while, it continues to cause more and more damage. And this is no fault of anyone watching. This is the fault of the systems that are set up to essentially claim to heal us. Again, it's the sick care system at work. This is something I love to talk about all the time because I think it's a great way of explaining this. And it's a great analogy of drawing attention to the fact that we often abuse our bodies as if they're not finite. So Ignoring inflammation is like walking into your bedroom right now and seeing that your bed is burst into flames and it's on fire. And rather than panicking, rather than trying to get involved and put out the fire, what you do is you close the door and you walk away and you go about your business. Now, unfortunately, right, you don't have to look at the fire, but it's still there. It continues to burn. And even if you had one of those awesome fireproof doors that's supposed to keep fire in the room's totally fireproof so it can't get out of that area. When you go back in that room in 2 weeks' time, it's going to be a charred wreck. It's going to be a mess because this fire has been allowed to continue to burn. In the case of our bodies, what we're doing is we're locking away that fire and we're expecting that it's not going to be a problem, but it spreads. And this is why people will go from 1 condition to 2 conditions to 3 to 8 to 10. And I saw that reflected in people's homework yesterday. People that started with 1 condition and now have 4 or 5. And it's this lack of snuffing out the inflammation, allowing it to continue to burn, which is causing this problem. No one in here, I'm willing to bet, no one in here would go into their room, see their bed on fire, close the door, walk away, and do nothing about it. You'd call for help, right? You'd try and do something about it. No one would do this to your house, to your room, to your property. But this is what we do to our bodies every single day. I want to take a minute to talk about channelopathies. And this is a term that maybe you've heard of before, but it's not something that's discussed very openly. So channelopathies are diseases that develop because of defects, and it's going to get a little sciencey, so bear with me. I promise I'll explain it all. Defects in ion channels caused by either genetic or acquired factors. Now, while genetic mutation can in fact lead to the development of channelopathies, inflammation can be a major problem here as well. Now, cells rely on achieving what we call action potential if they are to effectively replicate and function. Inflammation will lower cell function, drop cellular voltage to the point that cells cannot achieve their action potential. Eventually, they will stop trying. A cell that dies multiple times in a week and regrows itself gives up and stops trying to regrow itself. So this can lead to final cell death, and this in turn can lead to the creation of channelopathies. Now, yesterday when I was discussing this and we talk about how this is all about getting out of chronic pain, and I mentioned that chronic disease is something that can be addressed in this way as well. This is why, because channelopathies are often precursors to becoming chronic disease. So these relate more to disease than pain again, but most people that will start off with chronic pain will develop 1 or more autoimmune diseases within about 5 years. And the average number of diagnosed conditions that I see in my patients is probably 3. I was kind of doing the math on that the other day. The root is all the same though. It's inflammation. When I get people that are only dealing with 1 problem that they want to solve, it's usually something that happened within the last 1 to 2 years. Some sort of injury, tennis elbow, for example, carpal tunnel from work, a shoulder injury because they had a fall. And it's not quite gone to that point where that shoulder injury caused the person to have to take more time off work, which caused them to take pain medications to try and get back to work, which caused them to develop fibromyalgia, which caused them from there to develop chronic fatigue syndrome, and so on and so forth. It has to be early on for that to often not happen because, again, the fire has burned out of control. Let's explain action potential. Okay, so I'm going to get my little pen here on the screen. So again, this is important because this shows us what a cell would do. And again, it's very sciencey, but it is to the point of importance here. So step 1, so cells will sit at a resting state. So you can see resting state here. This is a cycle, so this continues to happen. So you can see the number 5 here to indicate that. So right, it loops back around. So at -70 millivolts, so this is their voltage, the voltage of a cell. Remember, we talked about our bodies being electric. At -70 millivolts, a cell is at resting state. Some sort of stimulus needs to occur for the cell to start to need to achieve its action potential. So they need to reach a threshold. They need a little bit of a bump in electricity to do that, to move from -70 to -55, where they can achieve threshold. So you go along this line and you get your stimulus, and in a perfect world, it bumps up to threshold and it starts the process of action potential. Once it starts, it finishes through to the end. It achieves what it needs to achieve, and it resolves itself back to a resting state. If they don't, they'll often experience a failed initiation and they will drop back down. And you can see this happens here. This is stimulus happens and you get these failed initiations. So this bumps down here. It doesn't quite reach the right voltage and it just keeps sending it back to a resting state. So stimulation of them again will attempt once more to raise the voltage and reach threshold to initiate cellular function. And if it's successful, the cell will send its signal, the body continues functioning. However, repeatedly failed initiations can prevent the signals going through the body. The neurons cannot send the signals, the body does not get the message, turn off the pain. These can block communication. It can prevent the cells from regenerating, and it allows cellular dysfunction to lead into channelopathies. Issues such as chronic inflammation, lack of hydration, scar tissue, presence of disease that damages cells, and beyond are all things that will prevent the electrical system from functioning and reaching that required threshold to take on action potential. Now, I can almost guarantee there's going to be a lot of questions about this, so do post those in the Facebook. If you have any questions, I'm happy to clarify what this means. So what kind of counts as channelopathies in the end? Channelopathies include, but are not limited to, conditions like epilepsy, autoimmune disease, diabetes, heart defects, ataxia, migraine, hyperreflexia, that one's a mouthful, blindness, deafness, and peripheral pain syndromes. Those are some of the more common ones that can result from this failed cellular function. But it does go beyond that as well. Many people need to consider that if they're dealing with a long-term disease or dis-ease, it is likely the result of a channelopathy. If this disease came out of nowhere, if it came out of left field, that's maybe a bit different. But if you were dealing with something before, if you were dealing with inflammation, if you had an injury, you'd had a surgery, and then a year or two later, something like this developed, think about the cellular destruction that can happen when cells are not allowed to repair and regenerate. The full cell cycle, I believe, is 120 days. That's how long it takes for cells to completely turn over. So if you were to do like a detox, for example, 120 days is usually where you're looking at before your cells are clear enough that you can reanalyze them and see how things are going. So if you have had an injury and you've got multiple blocks of 120 days that are showing failure, eventually these cells just stop because they're not achieving what they're achieving. They are considered a failed cell. And in many cases, these cells, if we're lucky, will be destroyed by our immune system before they're allowed to turn into things like channelopathies. But we have trillions of cells. Literal trillions of cells in our body. That is a lot of things for our body to take care of if we're not helping input and take care of them as well. So what about reducing the risk of channelopathies? So I don't want to be all doom and gloom here. In the same way that eliminating inflammation will stop pain, eliminating inflammation can also prevent the onset of channelopathies by really improving cellular function. Additionally, restoring the body's electrical network will make sure that we minimize the chances of these conditions recurring or developing. We will also revisit this topic in a few days' time as we look at ways to reverse channelopathies. So don't think, what do we do with this information? We will get to that point. But it's really important to understand that what inflammation can do to our cells, because we only really feel it. We only really experience the physical effects of inflammation, but we don't necessarily know what's going on underneath. Remember, it is a scorched earth program, essentially. And in the right situations, it is amazing. It is something that will help us heal. It will prevent us from further injuring ourselves. But it's becoming more and more prevalent as time goes on that it's just not turning off. And I do think we talked yesterday about the technology that we surround ourselves with and everything that we're exposed to all the time, and these electromagnetic signals that our cells are supposed to be tuned to that are not really conducive now to body-friendly waveforms, to things that we're used to having. And so these things themselves will create blockages too. It will slow the system down. It will cause us to get to that point where we're not really capable of healing, because everything is just blocked up and the cells will not know what to do unless we restore that electrical potential to them. So let's talk a little bit about the aggravators. So we've covered inflammation, we've covered channelopathies, now the aggravators. This is the important part. I learned in a past life, I think I was like a scholar of some kind that was into English literature, and I probably would have written a ton of books if I'd had the opportunity, but I don't know what they would have been about. So stories often play a role into my life, and a quote by Patrick Ness is one of the things that I actually quote to my son all the time. He's 12, so he's often going on about things that don't make sense and crazy decisions that he wants to make. But I'll tell him, you know, we are the choices we make and have to make. We aren't anything else. Now, when I tell him this, I am, of course, trying to emphasize that the choices he makes in life and the decisions he takes will end up defining him as a person. But this is actually quite profound for our health as well. As individuals, I guarantee almost that 9 times out of 10, you guys are going to know what your aggravators are, what sets you off. Because we do have a choice, right? 9 times out of 10, we do have a choice that we can make to reduce or eliminate the issue and alter, physically alter, who we are as a human being on a cellular level. So let's go through some common aggravators here. So first off is medications. So we talked about this yesterday. There's side effects of medications are often a cost that we're paying for whatever benefit you may be ascertaining from those medications as well. So these often help us in one way with cost in another. We talked about pain syndromes, nervous system disorders happening from over-the-counter pain meds. I think nervous system disorders was 10% of people will experience that from Tylenol, right? It's the sort of thing that's not written on the bottle, but it's crazy how many side effects there are. And when we're taking medications over a long period of time, we're saturating our body, our organ systems, everything about them is getting weakened and reduced to the point where we're going to struggle to make it through. Over-exercising is another common aggravator I see, especially with people who are using things like our microcurrent equipment and starting to feel better. It's very easy to get carried away into thinking that we need to exercise like crazy, or that we should just do it now because it's feeling good again if we want to get better. But overdoing it is just as bad as underdoing it. And that's something that I think we need to be aware of as well. Toxic relationships. This is always one I hazard to bring up with people. Whether it's family, friends, co-workers, whatever it may be, if we foster toxic relationships, we'll be fostering toxicity in the body. This is not to say that you have to get rid of the family member that you don't like, you know. That's not what we're asking here, but it's to reevaluate the interactions with them and the stress that it can cause, because stress is so heavily involved and can actually turn your body against itself in the same way that an autoimmune disease can. Poor nutrition. Well, we all know what's good for us, but are we doing it? I don't know. I think that depends on the person. I read many of your homework from yesterday. I saw some great dietary decisions. I think diet is one of potentially the easier things to change because it's so obvious that, you know, we shouldn't eat the burger and we should eat the salad instead. And though that's not always the case, depending on the individual, the question is, are we doing it, or are we going to keep aggravating ourselves? Exposure to wireless technology. Remember, again, our body is electric. Hitting it with signals from all of this technology, it can send us into an aggressive fight or flight mode. It can cause us more problems. If you feel you experience a lot of migraines, if you're weak and tired, this may be something to consider as well. Supplements are good, right? That's what everyone thinks. They're often touted as good options for everyone, but it's actually entirely possible to take too many supplements or the wrong ones. But the question is, which ones are wrong? They're so readily available, they're not often prescribed, that people just take them. And sometimes you see these medicine cabinets of people's supplements and you think, oh, wow, there's a lot of stuff going on in here. You've got 55 different supplements you take every day. If you took 55 medications every day, I would be extremely concerned. And supplements have that power. In many cases, supplements are the root of what they use to develop a medication, right? So you're just taking a lot of medications with a lot of power, many of which maybe do the same things or the wrong things. And we definitely need to consider that. If your supplement cabinet looks huge, that could be an issue too. Poor sleep. Well, lack of sleep, of course, can lead to increased stress on the body and in turn create more inflammation. So this is an aggravator as well. Okay, so we're going to get deeper into all of these things in the next few days. But for today's homework challenge, I'd like you to think a little bit about what we've talked about today and to reflect on what your healing journey has been so far. So in your workbook on page 11, you're going to find a space for you to answer the below questions. And I'm going to expand upon them just a little bit as well with a bonus homework. So what are your chronic symptoms you consistently experience and when did they begin? And what is the impact on your life? I think it's important to look at what the impact on your life is, because it's easy to just list your symptoms, but what has it cost you? Where are you going from here? And then bonus homework, can you identify any of your aggravators? I feel like from yesterday's experience, a lot of people can. Have you managed to eliminate those aggravators? Do you think you need more help? Feel free to answer that one or not answer that one. It's not as critical, but I think it's a very insightful piece that will help you out there, because there's quite a bit of stuff that we do need to be able to identify here. And if you can identify your aggravators, it's going to make everything a lot easier. Okay, so what about tomorrow? Day 3. So the Hache protocol, 5 interactive elements to becoming pain-free. This is possibly why you're all here. I hope you'll join me the same time tomorrow for day 3 of the Jumpstart Challenge. I will introduce the first 4 elements of the Hache protocol. I'll talk about the lifestyle of pain-free living, and I'll outline the elements that we need to incorporate to build that healing foundation. Remember, if you have any questions, reach out to Leo, your concierge. We gave all the ways to connect with him, and I think I've got them on the next page as well. So if you need help, again, you can text Leo. It's on the final slide here at 415-688-2045. Many people have been sending me very kind messages saying you don't want to overwhelm Leo, you don't want to bother him, but he wants to be bothered. If you have questions, that's what he's told me. He wants to make sure he's the point man, because otherwise I'm just having to pass everything on to him anyway. And make sure to get into the Facebook group if you can. I do think you're going to get a different experience than just watching it on Zoom, and you'd be able to interact. I'd be able to interact and read what you post too. It's a great way to share your homework in that way. No one here is opposed to you making a fake Facebook name account if you don't want to be on Facebook or no, and just putting in, when you answer the questions, who you are and what you're registered under, just so we know that you actually registered, and we'll get you in. I have many people with pseudonyms on Facebook, and we welcome that as well if that's more in your comfort zone. So thank you again, everyone. I'm just going to wrap things up here. Okay, so we've got if you do have any questions as well, there is a QA section in the guides. So you can check that out, and you can text Leo as well if you've got that. And again, if you like what you experienced, please invite your friends to register. Every person you invite is another person we potentially could help. You can go to thepainfreejumpstart.com. It is not too late for people to join. There'll be something I'll talk about tomorrow about that as well, where we'll be doing kind of like a catch up for people. So there's lots of potential resources available for them to catch up and make sure they take full advantage of this. So I will see you guys all tomorrow. Thank you again for joining me. I'm excited to see where we can take this. Bye-bye.